Hi, I'm Nancy Fetzer, and this is my Emergent Reading Kit. Before we go into all the videos that cover this program on my website, I would like to talk to you about all the research that I use to develop this program. Please turn to page 5 in your manual. We know that learning to read is critical for students to succeed in school, as well as to compete in the 21st century. Please turn to pages 6 and 7. Scientific studies repeatedly report a high rate of reading failure and illiteracy in the United States. That is, about 20% of elementary school students nationwide have significant problems learning to read. Illiteracy is widespread. It's a problem in every community. It's not limited to any race, region, or socioeconomic class. As a matter of fact, about 1/3 of poor readers are from college-educated families. About 60 to 70% of limited English speakers, African American and Hispanic children, as well as children living in poverty, struggle with reading failure. The rate of illiteracy in America's correctional systems is over 60%. I agree that these statistics are troubling. Yet, here's the good news. In recent research, scientists have estimated that 95% of children nationwide can be taught to read. This chapter identifies the problem, high illiteracy rates. Please turn to pages 8 and 9 for the results. What must we teach to increase literacy? There are two ways of looking at what we must teach students to learn how to read: the standards as well as research. In order to address the standards, please turn to page 294 for my one-page at-a-glance standards chart. This standards chart identifies specific foundational skills and language standards. Use this page as your reference sheet for your standards and the activities in which they are taught in this program. For a more detailed explanation, review the standards chapter beginning on page 291. Now let's go back to pages 8 and 9 to look at the research. Let's begin by looking at the big picture. That is the National Reading Panel's report that identified key skills and methods central to reading achievement. The panel reviewed more than 100,000 studies in reading instruction, focusing on the critical years of kindergarten through 3rd grade and identifying methods that consistently relate to reading success. Their findings identified 5 areas of reading instruction: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and text comprehension. Notice I've separated these 5 key skills into 2 columns. The first column, phonemic awareness, phonics, and fluency, those are our learning to read skills. That's primarily what we're focusing on this book. Then let's move to the second column, vocabulary and text comprehension. We will address vocabulary in this book as well as text comprehension, but please be advised, this book is a learning to read book. The instruction in this book is focusing on primarily these skills, as well as some vocabulary and some beginning comprehension skills. That means in your classroom, you also need to have those comprehension activities where you're using a read aloud book. So when we're looking at teaching children how to read, they will be in books that are at their instructional level, primarily working on these first 3 skills: phonemic awareness, phonics, and fluency. The vocabulary and the text comprehension skills, those need to be also addressed in another time of the day, typically where you are reading aloud that text. Why? Because students can't read those words yet, but they can think at that level. So remember, in your instructional program, you need to have comprehension where you're reading aloud a text at the student's thinking level so they can build those comprehension strategies and skills, while at the same time teaching them how to read, where they'll be working at their instructional level in books that slowly move them through a progression so that finally they can be a fluent reader. We don't want to only limit instruction to learning how to read without the comprehension piece, or just giving them comprehension without learning how to read. Both of these are critical to your instruction. So now that we know the key skills students need to be good readers, let's review the converging study that will address instruction. How do we teach many of these skills? The National Reading Panel's results showed that the most effective practice for phonics, reading, and spelling is to explicitly and systematically teach students the manipulation of sounds with letters, focusing the instruction on one or two types of manipulation rather than multiple types. You will be thrilled in this program because we will not take all the letters at one time. We use what the National Reading Panel told us to do. We will slowly build through this program. Children will start to master a few letters at a time, manipulating them, learning how to use them for reading and writing. Also, the National Reading Panels told us that programs that focus too much on teaching letter-sound relations and not enough on putting them to use are unlikely to be effective. So in other words, we're not going to wait to teach children all the letters of the alphabet. Instead, what we're going to do is as they learn a few letters at a time, we will then begin applying them to reading and writing. The National Reading Panel also advised that fluent and automatic application of phonics skills to text is another critical skill that must be taught and learned to maximize oral reading and reading comprehension. That means children need to apply what they learned in their phonics instruction directly to running text. They must work on their fluency. They must have frequent opportunities to practice reading text and therefore practice the application of skills. Basic sound-symbol correspondences and how the alphabetic system works in words, including automatic recognition of lower and uppercase letters and their basic sounds, the names and shapes of letters, and how we manipulate the sounds of language by listening, processing, and producing letter-sound correspondences. In addition, a number of high-frequency sight words that are systematically taught and reviewed, practiced, and reinforced throughout the day. Wait till you get into this manual. You will see all of these skills will be addressed. The National Research Council advises that kindergarten instruction should be designed to provide practice with the sound structure of words, the recognition and production of letters, knowledge about print concepts, and familiarity with the basic purposes and mechanisms of reading and writing. Again, in this program, all of these skills will be addressed. Key researchers have also told us that the ability to hear and manipulate phonemes, which are the individual sounds in language, plays a causal role in the acquisition of beginning reading skills. Additionally, along with reading, we will develop writing conventions and beginning writing behaviors. For reading, we'll learn how to, sequentially from left to right, blend sounds into words as children read, but also for the writing piece, we will take the words, segment the sounds in order to write them down. As you can see, I've taken a great deal of time to study all of the research to identify what children who are first learning how to read, what skills they need in order to successfully become good readers. This chapter provides that research for instruction. So now we are ready for our next chapter. The overview of this entire program and how it's aligned to this explicit, systematic instruction focusing on the skills necessary for students to become good readers.